Okay, my software says it's showtime. It must be showtime. Welcome to Real Guitar Live. I'm Thomas Michaud, and I'm so happy to be here, even though it's a sore back day. But I did my 5-minute stretching routine, and I'm ready to rock and roll. I hope you are too. I have lots of pre-submitted questions, and I'm happy to start with those. But anytime, feel free to add a question into the chat. And if it's related, I'll glance over once in a while, see if I can catch it. If it's not, I'll answer all the chat questions after I answer the pre-submitted questions. Please add the word question first. It's the only way I can quickly discern between comments and questions. And if I miss your question, I apologize ahead of time. If you could just add it again at the end, I don't mean to. I just can only read so fast down the chat. So with that, oh, and by the way, I'm going to do a drawing at the end. This is for people who are members of Real Guitar Success. We do a drawing once a month for people who have completed the practice sessions. They get one practice session every day during the week, and 10 minutes is all they need to spend on it. Check it off. Then they get entered in the drawing. So we'll do that, and I'll mention that at the end. Let's start with the first question. Music theory question. I understand intervals, triads as the basis for chords, but could you explain how sixth chords work? Also, how seventh chord and Cadd9s work as well. And because I got this ahead of time, I made a little diagram to help me out with this. So I want to start, first of all, just to make sure we're all on the same page. This is a basic triad. The basic triad is a basic chord, 3-note chord. And chords are constructed by the distance between the 3 notes. That's what makes the sound of the chord. This is a major triad, or a major chord, you could call it, C, E, G. And it's that distance, the 2 steps between the C and the E. By the way, 2 steps on the guitar, 1 step is from C, D is 2 frets. And then 2 more frets, that would be 2 steps. So I wouldn't play it here for a chord. I play that same note here. It's also called a major third. That's how we label intervals, major third, minor third. I won't go into all that. That's a whole separate lesson. Then from the E to the G, that's 1.5 steps. By the way, I often talk about half steps. That's just 1 fret on the guitar. So 2 half frets, obviously, is a whole step. 3 half frets is a minor third. So that's the C. Up 2 steps. Remember, I went from here to here, and I'm playing that note here. That's the C to E, and the E to G would be open. I'll use the open note. This would be C, D, E, F, G. I'm going to play that open. There it is. C, E, G. That way I can play them all together. Obviously, I couldn't play them all together if I'm fingering on the same string. So that would be a C major chord. If I wanted a minor chord, all I would do is make that E in the middle flat. That would make the first interval 1.5 steps, or a minor third. It just reversed the whole thing. And then the top one from E flat to G would be a major third. That would be a C minor chord. So hopefully that puts us all on the same page, basic triads. How do we turn those into extended chords? That's what we call C6, C7, and so on. C13, flat 5, those are all extensions. I'm going to deal specifically with the question, starting with C6. And for that, I get to go to my next, oh, whoa, that went fast. There, 6 chords. A 6th chord is the basic triad that we just talked about. It could also be, by the way, called C, or a major 6th chord. And that would be adding another note. In this case, the 6th. And the 6th interval is from that bottom C note up to 6. So a major triad plus added a major 6th interval. On the guitar, that would sound like this. Here's a C6 chord. It's a C triad. That's a C triad with a 6th added. In the key of C, that would be an A note. I added an A note. To make it a minor 6th, I would just use the minor triad and add that 6th interval. Here's what it would sound like. This is C minor 6. No, that's not C minor 6. There. That sounds like C minor 6. Okay, yeah. You hear the minor sound in there. But the 6 gives it not quite as, it's a softer sound than the regular C major chord. Now, let's talk about 7ths, probably the most common, huh? Oh, and I'm just going too fast here. The 7th chord is the same, the C triad, or a triad, a major triad, with the 7th interval added to it. So instead of 6th, a 7th. And we're going to say a minor 7th, because there's 2 types of 7th intervals. You can have a major 7th and a minor 7th. We're going to add the minor 7th. So a C7, for example, would be the C chord. That's what a C chord sounds like, triad, with a 7th note added. That's a 7 interval. C7. That's what we often call a dominant chord. It has that tension that wants to go back to the home chord. In this case, C7 would be the 5 chord of the F, key of F. Goes back to, just has that movement possibility. Now, the major 7th chord, that's where we get that major 7 interval. Same triad, add the major 7 interval. So this was a C7, the minor 7 interval, that's a note right there. That's a D note in the key of C, right? B flat. B flat right there. But we make it B natural up a half a step. That makes it a major 7 interval. That's not it. I would play that like this. Yeah, I got that B right there. The open B. Yeah, soft sound, huh? Kind of a airy sound, often used in jazz. Or in pop music, you want the more airy feeling, uplifting kind of feeling. Then you have the minor 7th, which is, I don't know how to play an open version. Sounds like that. So now you've got the minor triad with that minor 7th of the dominant chord interval added to it. Here's a regular C7 or C minor 7. I can play a C7 bar chord that way too. And then minor, basically just take that middle note, the E, and go to E flat. Minor triad with a minor 7th interval. And then finally, I want to talk about the add 6. I meant to add 9. And what add 9 means is that you've taken a triad and just added the 9th interval to it. A 9th, if you're in the key of C, a 9th is the same as going up 1 step. It's just basically you've gone around the whole octave up 1 step. So C to D sounds like you just went up 1 note, right? But that's actually, you can call it a 9. You can call it a 2 also. It's the same thing. A D in the key of C would be the 9th interval from C. And I play it this way. I love that sound. Generally a modern sound, not often used in classical eras type music or even in hardcore folk, country, but more in pop and country pop and that kind of thing. But very, very modern sound. That's used a lot. If you wanted to make it a C minor 9, you can do that too. Just make it a minor triad and then make it a C minor 9. Now, that's different than, you'll see I have on the chart, different than a C9. We're talking about a C add 9. A C9 is the same as a dominant chord with the 9th interval added. Different than just a triad with a 9, because you're basically starting with, you have to have the 7th to make it a dominant chord. That 7, remember we C7, that's a dominant chord now. Now you have to add the 9th to that. So C add 9 means no 7th interval. C9 means the 7th is in there also. Here's a C9. It's a type of, it serves the function of a dominant chord. C add 9 does not. It doesn't have that tension to move. Okay, so I'll stop there and I'll check and see if there's any questions related to that quickly, of course. Otherwise, I'll start going on to the next question. So I try not to, the reason I play all these is because I really think it's important to associate the sound with the technical knowledge. I went to college for years and studied theory, and it was fun a lot of times. But I had a hard time over time really applying stuff because we spend a lot of time talking about it, not a lot of time using it. It's the nature of college, of course. That's how they get exams and everything. It's just the way it is. After college, I got a chance to apply more of the stuff, and of course, forgot a lot of stuff too. But I really want my students to hear the stuff that, and hopefully to use it and apply it to make it practical. Okay, so I don't see anything directly related. And again, I could have missed something. I just can't read all these comments and keep you guys waiting. So I'll go on to the next one. I'll keep looking over there. Shulamit asks, I can't remember when I changed the strings on my nylon-string guitar, which I play almost daily. How can I know if I need to change them? Well, that's a good question. Here's how I know. It's a combination of knowing how long they've been on there and the sound. Mostly when I'm playing my guitar, if I hear that the sound is not as crisp and clear as I like it to be, it's time to change strings. And that's mostly what happens with nylon strings. They start losing some of that higher end frequency, the crispness. And I miss that, honestly. Now, I have the advantage of having more than one guitar too, so I can compare this guitar, and strings are sounding pretty flat. That's the word I use for strings that are starting to sound or dead. And then compare that to one of my other guitars. But either way, I can say if the string's been on there more than 3-6 months-ish, probably time to change strings. So I don't have to just rely on my ears. I know if it's been more than 3 months, I can't go wrong changing the strings. Let's put it that way. I never have to. I can always play and be satisfied with that dead sound. But I want to kind of invigorate the sound, which invigorates my practice and makes it more enjoyable. So after about 3 months, I'd like to say 3 months, but really in practical every day, I don't get around to it till about every 6 months. And I'm playing every day. Yeah. If you're playing once in a while, it's going to last longer. Strings do die without even playing them, but they just die faster if you're tuning and stretching and playing them. Nylon strings not as fast as steel strings, actually. Steel strings have the problem of corroding, which nylon strings not so much. Even these round strings, the inside is a nylon core. The outside has some metal, and that can get tarnished and corroded and affect the sound. Could you demonstrate the tap feature on the metronome? Yeah. I got a big metronome here. Oh, I'll get this thing off the screen so you can see. There, bigger, huh? So let me turn it on. And of course, every metronome has a different, may or may not have a tap feature, and if it does, it's going to be in a different place. I often use my iPhone, by the way, with the metronome. I didn't think to leave it in here, and I don't want to keep you guys waiting while I go get it. But there's a little tap button on every piece of software I have on my iPhone that makes it easy. And what that means is I'm listening to a beat of a song, and I'm tapping on the metronome, and it tells me the beat. It tells me the RPM is the actual word, meaning the BPM, RPM, BPM, beats per minute. On, I'll show you, demonstrate on this one. So maybe I'll just make up a song. Da 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 da. Is that a good song? Da, but you feel the beat. Da 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 da. And now I'm going to tap. Where's the tap function on this? This is where it's good to have glasses if you're anywhere up there near my age. Tap. Oh. Wow. Okay. Here we go. Dun 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 dun. I'm just doing the best I can to tap my finger on the tap function. It's on top here with the beat, and same as if I were tapping my foot. I'm just tapping my finger. Dun dun dun. It says 99. I never take it exactly. If I were playing a song, I'd probably try 100. That's probably close enough. Let me try again. Dun 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 dun. Now it says 96. when I tap with a song, it's almost never the same every single time. I kind of average it out. Oh, 96, 99, 102. I'll say, yeah, it's probably about 100. And usually, over time, I can kind of get closer to the same beat. Now I got 99 again. I'm kind of getting in the groove. So sometimes it takes a little time to get the groove going. I'm used to my phone. I guess, I just hold it like this. Okay. Hopefully that answered that question. And if not, please feel free to add any follow-up questions in the chat. I find that as I learn new material, I forget a lot of what I learned before and essentially have to go back to square one to master it. I can't review all of it all the time since it's so much material. Any suggestions? I would guess everybody can relate to this. I know I can, and it's an ongoing issue. I think I take for granted at this stage of my life that when I learn something, only a portion of it is actually becoming a part of me, and not only will I have to go back and review and see it again, but I'm going to have to find some practical application. Because if I don't have an application for something, it's natural for your mind to just kind of say, well, I don't know if we're going to need that now. Why clutter our consciousness with that right now? We can either store it, doesn't mean it's completely forgotten, but it's not very accessible, or just discard it, in which case you may come back to it and not even remember you went over it. This is the nature of learning. I do recommend everyone build in regular routine into your practice sessions. And that means, every so often, just actually say, I'm going to go back this much. And sometimes you might just realize that you didn't really understand something and want to go back over it. I'm taking another course, actually not related to music right now. And my approach for that course, at the teacher's suggestion, is to just go through the whole course, listen, and then go back and do the whole course again and take action on the steps that would help solidify. And even then, I don't expect to get the whole thing 100%. I know I'm going to have to go back at parts of the course. One of the cool things about a video course, I can go back and watch a video again and get a review. When I have a chance to use the material, I'm going to go back and review it again and get clear on it. And it sticks little by little. It's sort of like, somebody gave me this image one time of, in ancient India, they used to dye their robes with vegetable dyes and then lay them in the sun and let the sun bleach them. The vegetable dye would fade out, but it'd leave a little bit of the color. Then they'd go back and dye it again, lay it out on the sand, and the sun would bleach again, but a little more would stick. And they do that over and over until they got a color that was solid and it wouldn't wash out. It was as permanent ink is. So I think of that kind of how my learning path, and I think all of us learn that way. We absorb and remember a little bit. It is, if it's tied into emotion or to practical application, it tends to make a bigger impression, but never, 100% never sticks. You just keep coming back at it. And hopefully you, over time, kind of sort out what's more important to you, because that is more likely going to stay because you're going to apply it and use it and think about it. Just a lot of information can just clutter up your mind. So I think, in a way, our mind's kind of protecting us from a certain amount of over information. So you do review. I do review all the time, but I strategically choose what to review, not just constantly going over the same thing over and over and over and over. I find it difficult to memorize a song. I can relate. Usually I have to have it written out in front of me. Yeah. Are there ways to improve my failing memory? Absolutely. Now, I can really relate to this. And I think probably as all of us get older, we have some sense of some faculties, including our memory, are not going to be as sharp. I have found, though, and this is the good news, that I I think in some ways my memory is better than when I was younger. Not in every way, and I'm not going to discount decline as you get older, physically or mentally. But I think I remember music and certain kinds of things that are important to me better because I've practiced memorizing enough that it has gotten easier. And that's the thing about memory is it's like a muscle in a sense that the more you use it, the sharper it gets, the stronger it gets, the clearer it gets. I've read an article one time that said as you get old, the best way to stay sharp is to do some type of activity. And the three that were recommended were crossword puzzles, which I have no interest in, learning a language, which I'm very interested in, and learning music, learning a musical instrument. And I agree 100%. And they're very similar to the process of learning a language. It uses the process of your mind, and the more you use it, it stays strong. And I met musicians that are as sharp as a tack, 20 years older than me, and I'm already, getting close to 70. So I know it's possible. I would recommend anyone who's getting anywhere near my age to just make memorizing some portion of music a regular part of your practice. So sort of a mental practice. One of some of the techniques I use for memorizing is I'll play a couple of phrases and then see if I can play it by memory, then learn a couple more phrases, see if I can play it by memory. I go back and forth until I can, and then try putting them together and see if I can get through the two. I see if I fall down in a certain place, I'll go and just practice that part, usually the connection between like a couple measures or a couple of sections. And I'll practice that transition. Then I'll go back again, try and put it all together. It's a process. And it's like anything else. The more you do it, the easier it gets. At first you have to really think out, how do I do this? How do I do this? And then as time goes on, it's just natural. You just know, yeah, work in that part, work that, then put them together. You need to, if you're learning lyrics to a song, you need to take away the lyrics regularly. You need to memorize a part of it, do it, and then take them away and do it without the lyrics. If you're constantly staring at the lyrics, your mind knows it doesn't have to memorize them, and it'll be very difficult. You have to progressively take away. You don't just go through the whole song and then take it away and expect to memorize it. Do a part of the song, take it away. Do it again if you don't got it. Make it smaller if you need to. Then put them together, 2 verses together. Take it away, back and forth, back and forth. And over time, a little bit every day, keep working on it. You're developing and sharpening a tool, your mind, your memory function. Next, I'm having a difficult time arcing my fingers. And this is pretty common. They stay flat and keep me from making clear sounding notes. Any advice? This is Arthur asking. Let me just take this thing off. There, it was kind of in the middle of my guitar on my screen. But I do want to see comments, huh? And again, anybody that's new, please, if you add a question, I would love to answer it. Add the word question before so I can discern it from the comments. And if I do have missed your question, please forgive me. Just write it again at the end. I really do want to answer them. It's just, I can only read so fast, and I feel embarrassed sitting here reading and keeping you guys waiting. So, arcing. First thing I would say, Arthur, is do some stretching and exercise every time you practice. This is one that I like. Stretching your fingers. And this is another one. And I have a whole stretching routine that I'll put a link in the show notes to. But these are my 2 kind of first go-to. I do them all the time. The other ones sometimes, not as often, so to speak. Then warm up when you practice and do as simple as exercises you need to do. One of the problems I see in general with people who are having a hard time getting the right fingering is they're looking for like a quick fix when you've jumped a little too far in the progress of what you're trying to do. You've got too many things going on that you're not skilled at yet. So by warming up, you're going backwards to just a very simple exercise. I'll take this one. This is one of the most simplest I know. Just open string. Let me just play it just so most of you have done this at some point. I'm just going through one note at a time, usually in a kind of a slow tempo. And I'm paying attention to where my fingers are on the note, getting a good clear sound. If I get this, well, then I want to stop and see what I need to do it right. I don't want to press harder than I need to, but just hard enough, and get my finger in the right place with a good arc. Now you can focus on getting the right arc. When you're doing chords and you're still struggling with the chord and you don't have an arc, there's too many things going on, especially you're changing chords from one to the other. Doing this exercise a little every day as a warm-up, you can practice getting a good arc and a good sound on the notes. Now, next, what does a good arc look like? Usually, I need to get a good arc, I need to get my thumb behind the neck of the guitar. If you get your thumb up here, it makes it a little harder, but people do it. I'm just saying, for me, having a thumb back here gives me more space to come up and back down. You want to relax your arm, not force it up or back, just kind of hanging down and putting just enough pressure between your thumb and your fingers to make the note and no more. Really, it's very little pressure on my thumb. I'm not squeezing the thumb. I can almost let my thumb go and still finger the note. Let me see. Yeah, I can. I'm pressing down this way, and the thumb's just kind of holding it in place. I'm looking for something that comes up and down. If my finger's too far away, it's going to flatten out. So I'm going to need to move my hand up a little closer. If it's too close, I'm right on the tip of my finger and that hurts. So I need a little bit of distance. Now, the next step, you see, we're practicing the arc with a simple exercise. Then do the arc with a chord, but narrow it down to just one chord. Preferably, start with your basic open chords and get a sound and then take your fingers off. Don't try and get the arc right with a song. You're changing chords, you're trying to do the rhythm, you're trying to remember how the song goes. Too much. If you're having a problem getting the arc, one chord. This is your practice for, 3 minutes. No, okay, I gotta relax, shake it out, try to watch for tension, come back. There we go, get the note in the right place. Arc, arc. Better, take it off, shake it out, do it again. Get to where you can immediately get there and get a good sound with a good arc. Now, you're ready for the next chord. Let's say it's an A7. No, okay, I gotta work on that one. Better, move it around, adjust the hand, relax, it's getting tense, shake it out. Back to D. Now practice getting from one to the other in time and still making a good sound. And when those are reasonably consistent, sounding good, then you go on to the next chord. If you're playing a dozen chords and you still can't get a good sound on one chord, go back and work at the technique and simplify. Start by warming up, start by stretching. And, I wish I'd done that more when I was younger, but now it's a must. Stretching, warm up. Few minutes I'm talking about. Looks like it takes a long time. It does when you're learning it, but after I could warm up in 3 minutes, no problem. So, hope that helps, Arthur. Hope that helps everyone because this is an ongoing thing. Let me check questions now. Starting from the top, I'm looking for the word question. Oh, and I lost the comments. Let me get them back. Ha! There they are. Question, I see one. If you have time, please explain the difference between a blues scale and a jazz scale. I don't know what a jazz scale is, Michael. As far as I know, there's not one scale called a jazz scale. Jazz scales are just scales used in jazz, and there's many, many. So they're not different. A blues scale could be a jazz scale or not, depending on how you're using it, what you're using it for. Let's start with a blues scale. So a blues scale is just a scale, usually a minor pentatonic scale with another note added that's a blues note. I don't often use that term, a blues scale, quite frankly. I just say a minor pentatonic and I play blues notes. But I know a lot of people do, so you'll hear that term, a blues scale. Minor pentatonic scale with a blues note. So let's see. I will use a common minor pentatonic, A minor. That's the notes of an A minor pentatonic scale. And I'm going to add a blues note. So that was 1, 3, 4, flat 5, 5, 7, and 1. I'm talking about the number of the notes in the scale, the A minor scale. So again, in my mind, that's an A minor scale. I'm just adding that blues note. Often in jazz, people are using what we call modes. Modes are the major scale, the minor scale. In modes, they call them the Ionian scale, the Aeolian scale for minor. And then you have the mixed Lydian scale, the Locrian scale, Lydian scale, and so on. I don't use a lot of the modes. I use specific scales more, so I'm not the one to give you a lecture on the modes right now. And the main thing is, even though I can play them all, I couldn't give you advice on when and where to use them, so I'll skip that. But no, if you're playing jazz, that might be something you want to learn. Kevin's asking, is there any good and bad rhythm? Well, sometimes people say if you have bad rhythm, they're just saying that you're not playing in with the beat. So it's a term depending on how you use it. There are no rhythms that are inherently bad. I mean, if somebody made them up and they like them, they're good to them. It's all. But if somebody says you have bad rhythm, they're usually referring to you're having a hard time finding the beat and either singing or playing with the beat. What is the use of the metronome practice? So metronome practice, I find, has a lot of uses. One of them is just as a measuring tool. And I like that. It helps me to practice longer to measure some exercises or scales or I do some arpeggio things with my classical guitar with a metronome and then progressively push the speed up. I'm not just trying to get the fastest. I use it to actually slow me down to get the technique right because I have a hard time slowing down without something kind of giving me the pulse. I tend to keep speeding up. And I like to kind of keep track of the numbers because when I'm playing something that's meant to be fast, I can kind of use that as a encouragement to get faster and faster. Also, metronome practice can help you internalize and get better at rhythm. So I think it's a great practice to practice the basic scales with the metronome just to get used to the pulse. I encourage students to practice without the metronome also, so you're not always dependent on the metronome to be able to hit the beat. You want to try to internalize that rhythm. So to do that, you take away the metronome and try to play a consistent beat without the metronome as well. And I think it's a cool measurement tool, as a kind of a guardrail when you're practicing chords. Try with the metronome. So you have to change on time, change with the beat of the metronome. Otherwise, people tend to speed up, do this. I see this all the time. So I slow down before I change chords. And many people don't realize they're doing that because they're not used to playing with a beat. They play by themselves. And the metronome helps with that. Question. My left thumb hurts whenever I play bar chords. Am I playing it wrong or just need a lot of practice? It could be both. It's hard for me without seeing how you're placing your thumb. I couldn't advise you, but it's worth checking if you need to adjust your thumb a different way. And when students are learning bar chords, it almost inevitably hurts at least a little bit. So the answer is, yeah, probably both. Check your thumb position, check against, some lessons on bar chords, and then also check to see that you're not tensing up too much and see if you can make the bar chord without feeling a lot of tension. And then practice consistently. If you feel too much pain, back off, shake it out, maybe even take a day off, let the hand get better. Don't try to practice and just push through pain all the time. You're likely to strain your muscle and get worse. But at the same time, don't be afraid of a little pain. That's whenever you're learning something new on the guitar, your hand has to get used to it. Speaking of memory, what are the most important scales to memorize? Well, first of all, you don't have to memorize scales, depending on what you're playing. A lot of it has to do with the style of playing. If you're playing folk-style chords and singing, you may not need to memorize any scales. It's usually that's a form of playing chords and strumming. I think it's helpful to memorize at least the basic C major scale and A minor scale, and scales in the keys that you normally play in G, E, and B. No, I'm sorry, C, E, and D, I was trying to say, because it'll help train your ear to hear the notes that are in those scales that you're using all the time. It'll help you sing better. It'll help you understand music theory better, because you can, when you learn something about theory, you can actually play the scale and see how it works. If you're improvising and jamming and soloing, if you're playing in the world of rock and blues, your first and most important scale is the minor pentatonic, usually starting with A or E or both. A and E minor pentatonic scales are used extensively in rock and blues improvisation. You got to know that, and that's a great place to start. It makes good sense because it sounds good, and you can quickly get playing something that sounds in that style. What about the arc with the pinky? I guess Gerald is riffing on the question about the arc. So the arc with the pinky, I'm going to add an exercise to my first recommendation. An exercise that uses the pinky to start with. Same thing, stretching. You want to stretch your pinky. But then do this exercise. Up here on the 5th fret, 6th string, 6th fret, 7th fret, 8th fret. Now make sure the notes are nice and clear. Go slow. Move the first finger over to the 5th string, 5th fret, and I'm leaving the other fingers off. This is really getting me to arc, because if I flatten them, it deadens out the string, the 5th string. I'm on the 5th string, and I'm moving one finger over at a time. Now the pinky. Now I'm moving the first finger over to the 4th string. See, again, if I'm angled down, it'll deaden out. So it forces you to check and get it right. I usually start people who are just starting this exercise with no pick and just practice the movement and the arc. And don't worry about if you're hitting it or not. Just get the basic movement. Then start adding the pick, and you'll find that some of the notes are deadening out. And then you can work on that and adjust them. It's called a spider exercise, or at least commonly called a spider exercise. Great exercise. Not for the brand new beginner. I would go with simpler exercise. But if you've been playing a while, highly recommend you add that to your repertoire. And William is asking, he says, thank you. You're very welcome, William. Can I learn to play well enough by watching YouTube videos? Good question. I would say probably, but it's a hard way to go. The problem with YouTube videos, let me see if a concise way to say this. There's a lot of great videos on there and a lot of great teachers too. The problem is YouTube, first of all, they're not sequential. And the way YouTube is set up, instructors aren't really encouraged to make sequential videos. The thing is, they're encouraged to get things that will show up in search or people will click on because they're an exciting topic. So YouTube encourages that to get the click to make something sensational or exciting or some small tidbit that that enough people will click on to be worth making the video, which, by the way, is often very time consuming. Those nice videos you see on YouTube are not something you make usually in 5-10 minutes, sitting down with a guitar and just riffing off the top of your head. Hours and hours of work go into those. So the problem there is if you're learning, YouTube is actually fighting against you because they don't want, they're basically set up so not going the next subject next, and in small increments, because that would be boring for people. Too many people wouldn't click on that third video. They're still on that first video. And that's as far as they got. So it would be a waste of time for creators. It's a tough way to go. If you're experienced enough, you can pick and choose YouTube videos that fit something that you need. But if you're not, you're better off getting a private teacher or a system online with a good teacher that is progressive and can show you the tedious, boring stuff at the right time in the right places that wouldn't fly on YouTube. Okay, I've answered all the questions in the chat for now. If you think of any additional questions, I'll go on to the drawing. And if you think of anything, I'll answer whatever leftover questions after the drawing that I can catch before closing up for today. So let's go on for the drawing. Great questions, guys. A really good job. Here's the this drawing again for people that are new here. This is a drawing for people who are in my Real Guitar Success membership, and every day they get a new lesson, spend 10 minutes on the lesson. At the end of the month, they get entered into a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card. And so it's just meant to be some extra fun. Really, the learning is the actual real benefit. Today we got Jalma. Jalma, you're going to get an Amazon gift card today. And everyone else, you're a winner. Thank you for playing along. And it's a pleasure having you here. Okay, I'm going to check for last minute questions. Nothing today, huh? Just thank you. You're very welcome, Dan. And David, you're very welcome. All of you, thank you for being here with me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be able to share this time together. And I'm happy to be able to share whatever information I can to help and encourage you, not only to play guitar, but to feel good about yourself and enjoy your life doing something that you enjoy doing and you deserve it. Look forward to seeing you again next time. I'll be back the first Thursday of every month, and that means we're already into July. It's going to be a warm one. Take care, and I'll see you then.